Today's block is just like yesterday's block, except for we're going to make 2 sets of 4 patch units. So we'll just start out by sewing 1. And we'll sew the other one. At this point, you'll need to press your fabric out toward the colored fabric, color number 1. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do this time is do this a little bit differently than we did yesterday. Just kind of a different shortcut for making, you know, these kind of 4 patch units. So we're going to cut it in half. Then we're going to lay them next to each, lay them right sides together. Make sure you nest that seam in. Line up the edge with your ruler. Trim a straight line. Turn that around. And then we're going to cut 2 1 1/4 inch strips. And if you're doing it this way, you might want to make your strips at least 6 inches long instead of 5 1/2. So the strips were 1 1/4 by 6 inches would be better to give you a little more room for cutting and trimming. As you can see, I didn't trim very much. I didn't have very much to trim off, so I had enough, but if you want a little extra, make your strips a little bit longer. And we're going to sew these into 4 patch units. Then we'll, oops, that won't reach my thread cutter. All right, so then we're going to do this one. Press your seam toward the darker unit. We're going to fold it. We're going to cut it in half. And you could cut that with scissors if you wanted to, because you're going to just trim it off anyway. Flip it over. Get your seam allowances nestled there really nice and tight. Okay, so don't cut it like that. Make sure you line it up. You've got 3 reference points, your 2 edges and your stitching line there. So make sure you get it nice and straight. Trim it off. Then you want to 1 1/4 inch, not 1 1/2 inch. 1 1/4 inch and 1 1/4 inch. And then you're going to stitch these 2. So for your 6 1/2 inch block, you'll want strips that are 2 inches by 9 to 10 inches. 1 of each color and 2 of your background. So you're going to want 2. And you're definitely welcome to press these with your iron. It's just a little easier for me doing the video to be able to just sit and finger press. And with the batiks it works pretty well. So now there's a little trick to setting these together. If you sew them all the same direction, you can see you've got this seam allowance is going down and this one is going up. So those two will nest together. See, this seam allowance goes this way and this one goes the other way. Those two will nest together. And then we want to turn this to where this seam allowance goes this way and this one goes down. So if your seam allowances are bulking up and they're both on one side, you can turn your square around and find a way that it will work. I hope that makes sense. Probably not, but I'll show you the back when it's done and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to sew those two. And we're going to sew these two. And we're just going to open these guys up and flip them over. I like to use my needle and presser foot as an extra hand to hold things down. Match up that seam allowance, sew over it. Okay, match up these seam allowances, and sew there. And then lastly, you're going to match up these last two seam allowances. So all the way across. Now I'm going to open this up and you'll see. See how these outer squares, the seam allowances, are both going out toward that darker square. So that allows these seam allowances to offset each other so you can match them up better. And then you can just press that seam that way, and there you have it, block number 5.